Welcome to the growth stage, everyone. We are the final session of the Side REunite Forum. How incredible has this week been? And props to you all for showing up and staying for the very last session. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. That's right. Today in our session, Turn Up the Authenticity for Off the Charts Growth, we will discuss how you can be wildly successful in real estate and still stay true to who you are. We're doing a deep dive into how the agents on this stage have built and scaled thriving businesses by tuning out the noise and focusing on authenticity, relatability, and transparency. I'm Melissa Sophia, and I'm the founding partner of the Avenue Home Collective in San Diego. We roll deep. And, I have been an agent for 20 years. I have been a broker for 7. And most of those 20 years I spent just trying to figure out who I was and actually being in a boring suit with a boring self-promotion to match, because that's what I was told was going to make me seem more successful. I started in the business at 18, and I looked like I was 12. I actually started in the business alongside my mom, and we were a top producing mother and daughter team. Unfortunately, at 21, I lost her, my best friend, my mentor, my business partner, and trying to figure out real estate and life at such a young age, I was given a lot of unwanted advice, and part of that advice was how I needed to dress, professionally, which somehow I interpreted as somewhere around business pilgrim chic. Looking back at my pictures, I'm like, no, why? Not cute. In any case, it interpreted into me also speaking in a way that wasn't authentic to me. I was trying to be older than I was trying to be more serious than I was. And what it did is it actually translated very poorly to my sphere. In an effort to try to be who people told me was professional and serious and would retain business for me, I ended up coming across as disingenuous. And that was a tough thing to understand over time. One thing that was really helpful to me was in that period of life, I became a mother myself. And as I became a mother and looked at the value of my time, I really stepped into, who do I want to spend my time with? Who do I want to be? Who do I want my children to see me as? And what kind of clients do I actually want to work with? And diving really deeply into that gave me the opportunity to understand myself, forgive myself, learn who I was fully as an agent and a human. And it made me step fully into being unapologetically me. And in that, I have never seen my business explode. People come to me for, clientele come to me, and for me to enjoy the time that I had. Today, I am so excited to say that we are just shy of 200 homes sold so far in 2021. Thank you. And we did it by being unapologetically me. It brought agents to me that I believe in, that share my same philosophies. And I know that the 3 agents here that share the stage with me are equally as authentic, transparent, and relatable. I'm so excited to introduce to you Danny Yadigar, Cynthia Cummins, and David Oliphant. Now, if you guys would each take us through a little bit about your business and what got you to this point. Danny?
Sure, I can start. Thank you, Melissa. My name is Danny Yadigar. I'm with Generation Real Estate based in San Francisco. My journey to real estate was a meandering path. I danced around buildings kind of from every angle. So I did landscape architecture for years, and then that took me up a scale to urban planning. I went to grad school studying affordable housing, and I came back to San Francisco and did affordable housing development, really focused my trade on construction. And then after that, I did development negotiations at City Hall, where we were negotiating large-scale developments and trying to get a correct balance of affordable housing into the big projects. My brother and my father are structural engineers, and I was raised kind of being pointed out about truss structures and how bridges are put together, et cetera. I know buildings inside and out, and at a certain point, having been raised in the Bay Area, it made sense to kind of, I wanted to support my family and friends in planting their roots and buying property for themselves. I think for me, the biggest challenge that I wasn't aware of was that being a realtor is as much about selling property as it is about selling yourself, about selling the fact that you are an agent for someone else. You are representing someone else. And it's about more than just knowing a building inside and out. And I'd say it took me maybe 4 full years to really believe in myself that I was better than most other agents in representing someone. And it was only then that I was able to expect people to believe the same of me. And I absolutely love real estate. I was actually just running the numbers. I know most people do things on an annual basis, but my past year compared to the year before, I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's 4 times the volume. And so much of, thank you. I really attribute a lot of that to just finding my flow and becoming more comfortable with the role of being a realtor.
Beautiful. I love how we are just talking about shackle breaking, breaking the norm, just letting people get to know you, diving into the deep authenticity of yourself. Cynthia, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yes, I have. I've been in the business for more than 30 years, so it's kind of a long story. I'll give you a really quick version. I'm the founder of Kindred SF Homes. I have a team of 7 agents, plus me, plus 2 staff. And never in my wildest imagination did I think I would be a real estate agent, ever. As a Girl Scout, back when, I couldn't even sell a box of Thin Mints to my parents, right? And so fast forward, I'm in my late 20s, and I got fired in my PR job at Banana Republic, but owned by Gap. And my then boyfriend, now ex-husband, said, hey, you know, if you're gonna be miserable, you may as well get paid for it. Why don't you be a real estate agent? So I got my license, and I'm a very good girl, a very good study. I did all the steps. I went out door knocking. I found a buyer. I represented him, and I was just shocked and amazed at how much satisfaction I derived from my investment in his happiness. All I wanted was for him to be happy. And that hooked me. And that's how I ended up here 3 decades later.
Love that. David, we'd love to get to know you and a little bit about your wildly successful business.
You would. Hey everybody, David Oliphant. I own Ocean Blue Real Estate, which is in Half Moon Bay, California. One of the prettiest places I've been. And I always tell people, thank you. I always tell people that, very few people are in Half Moon Bay by accident, right? People move there on purpose. So it's an interesting place to live when you're living somewhere that everyone around you has chosen to be, right? But I didn't start real estate until I was into my 50s. I know that's shocking because you can't even believe I'm that old anyway. But I did it because I'd always been with luxury brands in the hospitality industry. And my husband was with Cirque du Soleil for many, many years. When we were tired of Las Vegas, we chose Half Moon Bay, and I thought, okay, what's the thing I can do here and make a good living and be myself and not have to commute and use all my business acumen and my service acumen. And that's why I thought, gosh, I'm going to do real estate. And I'm the sort of person that I think a lot about something, and then when I jump really high and really fast. So I had thought a year about that before I even decided to do it, already visualizing that I was going to be a success at it. Because I'm a huge visualizer. I think we all could be. And if you see it happening for you, I think that it's absolutely going to happen. And so I never believed I couldn't do it. But that's part of my upbringing. I'm sure we'll get to that.
The long story of his upbringing.
Long story of my upbringing.
Long, beautiful story. So, there was obviously a part of our journey that all inspired us to be more authentically us. For me, with the loss of my mom and looking at the value of my time, staring at my kids and wondering, would I rather speak to this random mean buyer, or would I rather hang out with my kids? I knew at that point, I'm a mother of 4. Becoming a mother is what inspired me to change the deep why. Look at my deep why and change the way that I did my business to match how I wanted my daily life to look. So I know for me, I did a soul searching session into who it was that I wanted to serve and who I wanted to spend my day-to-day with, how I spoke to my audience, how I marketed to them, so that I could create a business that I love to go to every single day. Is there a point in your career, Danny, that you made that switch, and what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so there were 2 things that happened, and they both align with the pandemic. So I actually do improv. I have a side business called Nerd Improv that does corporate team building. And I started,
Come down to San Diego for that.
So down. I started that at the same time as I started real estate in 2016. And both of my businesses were actually growing at the same pace and giving me the same amount of income, and I enjoyed them equally. You can imagine in-person corporate workshops took a nosedive during the pandemic, and that business completely halted, died in the water. And I was lucky enough to be able to just pivot to real estate, and I went full-time real estate. And for me, this also coincides with my company, Zephyr, my agency, got essentially acquired by a conglomerate based in New York, and we lost a lot of control over the marketing and the tone of the marketing. And as someone that was born in San Francisco, raised in Berkeley, very much in touch with integrity and being genuine and being local, it was really hard to have this large agency representing us. And a lot of the marketing that came out was very tone deaf. Enter Side, and such an incredible opportunity to work in a small agency where I had the leverage and the capacity to create my own brand. And so for me, with the loss of my improv arm, it was very important to have a creative outlet and a place where I could have fun and express myself. And I felt very fortunate to be able to direct all of that energy towards my real estate practice and also see it turn into a really successful business practice. That just being myself and being fully expressive was so well received in real estate, and now I'm very comfortable being full-time real estate. Yeah.
Awesome. I feel like it speaks to the world that we're in today too, that we can be so comfortable and watch our success increase as we become more ourselves. So Cynthia, tell us a little about what the process looked like for you.
So about 15 years into my career, I had this David Byrne Talking Heads moment of, this is not my beautiful house. And I was really disenchanted with the real estate business. I don't remember exactly what was going on then, but I know that I was sort of hating my job. I was miserable in my marriage. That wasn't going so well. So I did what any good person in San Francisco, California would do. I went into therapy. No,
She
that
took
came
LSD.
later. That was later.
Yes.
That was part of my exploration. No, I started doing all sorts of different self-actualization modalities. And what I finally hit on was the practice of mindfulness. And I'm a sloppy Buddhist at this point. But the quest for being mindful led me to trying to have compassion for myself and the way that I was feeling about things. And having compassion for myself led to figuring out how to befriend myself and have fun at everything that I was doing, to make everything that I was doing something that I would want for my best friend. And I was a writer. I started writing about home. What does home mean? And I began to develop this philosophy about real estate, that real estate really has to do with home. It's a home, it's not a house. And that became the nexus for the philosophy behind my business, the way that all of my marketing content began to reflect that, and I also found that I was having a lot of fun with it. So that's what happened. I befriended me.
I love that. And if we can only be as kind to ourselves as we are to our best friends.
That's the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm. David, at what point in your career did you step into yourself?
So it turns out I'm a blend of Danny and Cynthia. Interestingly enough. And
Different drugs.
If Danny and Cynthia had a baby, it would be David.
The mushrooms of Berkeley, right? No.
The mushrooms of Berkeley, the weed from San
There you
Francisco
go.
made David.
And you're welcome, and good night. So you know what? Here's the thing that I
They
did.
said that we could be inappropriate, just letting you guys know. This was like, we asked because we're the authenticity talk.
Right.
So
Of course we're going to be inappropriate. Here's the thing that I didn't realize probably till I was about 40. I was raised in a household in the middle of 5 boys, 18 months apart. And my parents are in their 60s. They've been married 85 years. They're funny. They're silly. They still live on their own. But I was raised in a household that we had dinner together every night. And I literally believed that that's how every family was. And we were told every night how amazing we were as kids. And that our uniqueness was the thing that made us really, really special and wonderful. So we carried ourselves around like, I think I learned to be kind to myself because of the way I was treated by my parents. Because I thought that's what everybody did. So I thought I was just modeling that sort of behavior. So I have been painfully kind to myself for my entire life because I really thought I would never say I have an inflated ego. I would never say that at all. But I have always really appreciated who I was because I was told that it was the right thing, right? So I think what shifted my experience and where it kind of was similar to Danny's experience is I was with a local brand in Northern California. We had just moved to Half Moon Bay, and the Review did a monthly magazine, and every February they would publish the couples of Half Moon Bay in love for Valentine's Day, right? And I'm like, well, that's not clever, but okay. So the first couple years the magazine came out, it was always Caucasian straight couples. And I was like, I'm not even that smart, but I see a lot of people in the Asian community, a lot of African Americans. I know there's gay people here. So I finally wrote to the editor after the 3rd year. I'm like, I don't expect you to pick me, but you have got to open your eyes because you guys are missing it, right? So of course, next year he calls. He's like, all right, we want to shoot you and your husband. I'm like, now when you say shoot, what did you mean? No, right. So he said, I want to shoot you and your husband for the magazine. I was like, okay, great. The one thing I didn't know until it came out, and I was at the office when it happened, is that they put us on the cover. And my TC just walks up with these huge eyes in this cover, and I was like, oh, Jesus. But what shifted me in my thinking about how I felt about my real estate world is the very first thing our vice president said to me is, oh, my God, are you worried about your business? And I thought, I might be in the wrong place. Like, really? Really? That's what you're asking me? And it was the opposite experience when Side started calling me, right? It was just a very, very different feeling. But that's what happened to me that shifted my thinking at my last company that starts with a C, that's also from New York. And they wanted me to advertise like in a box, and it was supposed to be black and white, right? I was like, I'm a gay guy with a shaved head and pierced ears. I'm not doing a black and white ad. Like, good news, bad news. So anyway, that's what shifted me in my thinking about, God, am I really with the right brand?
Beautiful. You know, it's not always easy staying grounded. As our world continues to become progressively more and more interconnected, it becomes increasingly more tempting to look at what other agents do, get FOMO, get a little bit nervous about what your practices are at that moment, and even try to emulate someone else's marketing or business practices at the expense of your own uniqueness. Obviously, this almost never works because, in the way that you expect, at least because it's difficult to copy what someone else is doing. It has to do with just their individual life experiences, their value system. There's so many things that go into it. And all of those factors are ultimately derived from that one person's life. So we're here to just talk about how no two people are alike. And by focusing on what makes you unique, you become memorable. And in real estate, as you know, being memorable, staying top of mind, that actually turns into commission checks. It's consistent, and it also feels good. So it's not an easy practice, though. What daily practices keep you guys grounded and keep you fully, authentically yourself? What do you do on a day-to-day? Cynthia? She looked like she wanted to answer.
Oh.
She was ready.
Well, I do have an answer.
Yes.
I practice, and I highly recommend breathing. And by that I mean having one conscious, delicious breath, as if it was your last, maybe, to really, sip it in slowly and exhale slowly and be mindful that you did that. If I do that maybe first thing in the morning or throughout the day, if I'm about to have a difficult conversation with someone, or there's something exciting happening, that grounds me. So it works for everything. Breathing.
Breath work. Do you study breath work, or is it literally just your meditation, your meditative breathing?
I meditate, and I do all kinds of stuff, but really anybody can breathe. There's really no special skills needed. But sometimes it's hard to just sit in a chair, be quiet, and take a deep breath. That's hard to do.
It's
It is.
very hard to do. There's nothing I'm more terrified by
Than being quiet,
than
or
just sitting down
breathing.
and being quiet and breathing.
I was going to say, I actually
Some
do have a
scary
hard
shit.
time.
I mean, when people talk about going to Vipassanas for a week, it literally sounds like the scariest thing in the world for me.
Well, I want you to go with me. We'll go.
I'll think about it.
You'll love it. Well, no, what we can do is we can start by dancing and then work our way down to just breathing.
I also do breathing. I limit it probably to maybe 10 to 20 minutes a day. I've gone through a lot of different practices. In the morning, some days I have great energy, some days I don't. And so my practice currently acknowledges that. I beat myself up for not always being able to have this strict regimen of breathing every morning, meditating every morning, or working out every morning, or doing yoga every morning. I give myself an hour every morning. And I honestly feel like the nature of my day is decided by my commitment to that hour. I don't look at my emails. I don't think about work. I write in my journal. I make food. I clean. I dance. I do yoga. I go on a run. I meditate. I do whatever feels right in that morning. And it honestly has made such a difference in my days. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So, David, is there anything that you want to add? Nope. Got it.
Of course. I told somebody one time, I think I just must not get it, right? Because I think I was one of those people that just was, by the process of DNA, was like born an optimist, right? And born like happy. I think some people are just born happy, right? And so I think I just happened to get that. And then you couple that with the upbringing that I had, and like every day for me, there was one other thing that I'll share really briefly. So in my 20s, I was getting ready to come out as a single gay guy in the 80s, right? What was the other big thing that happened in the 80s was the AIDS crisis, right? So I'm like, oh my God, am I really going to tell my parents? Couple that with early hair loss in Reno. So now I'm a
The
20-year-old.
tragedy.
Well, as a 20-year-old single gay guy in Reno in the 80s, right? Like, it wasn't hot. It's trendy now, and I'm thankful for a round head, but it wasn't hot. But so having to get used to that at a really early age too, kind of just bolstered the, God, I have the greatest life like ever. Do you know what I mean? So I just wake up happy and thankful and appreciative, and I get that I don't get it, but I don't want to get it if I'm thinking that deeply. Y'all can keep it if that's what thinking about it is.
You know, the beautiful thing is the common thread between all of these responses ultimately leads back to gratitude. It ultimately leads back to what we're thankful for and allows us to step more firmly into, you know, what we're going to do with our day to replicate that. So love it. Tell us about your experience, Cynthia, of how you've been able to attract agents to your team because of this, because of your authenticity.
Thank you for asking. Well, Side gave me the opportunity to really, when I was asked to join Side, and I started my company, which is Kindred SF Homes, they encouraged, and a lot of thought went into what the name of the company would be. And so I did a pretty deep amount of introspection about what I wanted. And the name Kindred says a lot about that. I believe that real estate is about home. It's not about selling. I believe that that Kindred is about inclusivity and about being family and being happy together, supporting one another. I believe that we should all be ourselves, like do a good job serving our clients, but also be ourselves while we're doing that. And these are actual value propositions that I've written down that my team has in front of them. And I also have blogged for many years now about, at my blog, realestatetherapy.org, about home and the meaning of real estate. So it's all out there for anyone to see. And most of the people who've joined Kindred really truly are kindred spirits. They're down with that approach. And so yeah, it's the name and all that entails.
Beautiful. David, how have you brought more people that are, you know, reflective of this to your team?
It's not been intentional. You know, I'm not that bright, right? I just admitted to that. I think it's just got to be showing up as who I am in a small community and being willing to be that person, you know. And when I engage people, it's important for me to use the word husband, right? I don't say my partner. I don't just use his name, because those sort of things are important to me. So I think it's just got to be showing up as who I am.
And with your van.
I don't know if I have a picture of the
With
VW
your
bus. I
van.
do drive a 1968 VW bus with all my branding on it at the coast, and it's great. It works for the brand, but you know, it makes people smile every day, which is important to me.
You know, I think there's one part of showing up as being transparent, relatable, authentic that a lot of people tend to be afraid of, and it's being able to know that not everyone's going to like you, not everyone's going to relate, not everyone's going to understand why you do or say or act the way that you do, but to know and stand in confidence that those people are not for you, whether they're high producing agents that you want on your team and then it turns out they're not at all what you thought, or whether it's clients that you don't want to work with anyway. At the end of the day, you guys know how it is to be deep in a deal, to be alongside someone in an office and be like, I don't care how much money I make. I just don't need to be around you. So I think that's part of you know, authenticity that terrifies people. And so there's a level of bravery that is handed to this, and I think it's amazing that you guys are so deeply seated in that. Danny, tell us, what is the funniest or most rewarding project you've worked on as it relates to authenticity?
So I did a thing. I did a video. If you guys want to see it, I highly encourage it. You can search for Meet Danny Realtor on YouTube. I was going to perform in a musical that my friend wrote and produced in March of last year. And actually, our performance coincided with the exact week that the lockdown went into place. And it was such a tremendous loss for this group of 6 of us that had poured so much energy and soul into this project. We had 3 nights at this local club booked out with 400 people each night. It was a lot of people were excited to see this show, and we had been working on it for months. So that got canceled, and I diverted all of my energy from that into a video. And actually, the producer of the show was my creative director for the video that you guys can watch. My plug, and maybe a key takeaway from this session, do video. Do video. Whatever form that works for you. The level of engagement, the amount of expression you can convey through it. I have at this point, I think it's been on for 2 months, and I have 35,000 views. And I've been stopped by a neighbor in front of my house that I had never met before. I've been approached on gay dance club floors in the middle of like a really busy dance floor, and someone was like, "Are you the YouTube realtor?" So the reach has just been beyond anything I could have ever expected. To your point about, you can't make everyone happy, I took some risks in the video, and it was very much a conscious decision about potentially alienating some clients at the benefit of other ones resonating with me more, right? And so that was a big decision of, I want to put myself out there to attract more people that want to work with me. And it's become like a piece of accountability for me, where now that the video is out, I can't go back, right? Questions about like, oh my God, I'm going to meet this client for the first time who wants to buy a $4 million homes, and my nails are painted turquoise after Pride, don't register in the same way. Because the fact that I'm fun, but also know what I'm doing, right, is so established in that video. So I think that's some creative piece that I'm really proud of, and I encourage you guys to take a look at.
I can't wait to see what risks you took.
There's some risk.
Yeah, for me showing up in this way, just fully transparent, hard on your sleeve, it's not easy. In a slower month, I'll find myself tempted to try what my competitors are doing, and I don't know, I just have FOMO altogether. FOMO struggle is real. And in one way or another, it becomes easy to start spending money in a way that you don't necessarily want to. Even though I'll never stop myself from trying new opportunities, I ultimately come back to what is my best ROI, which is marketing to and connecting people that already know, like, and trust me. And the ROI for being authentically yourself and really stepping into that, I think is highly underrated. And it's a business practice that's not talked about too often, but you see it in the people that are highly successful. Their confidence in their abilities as an agent supersede their fear of being accepted or not accepted. And it's very, very clear with all of you guys. So when you lose your way, the way back is doing by things you love and diving deep into that. And I love that that's something that you did with your video. Cynthia, have you ever experienced situations where you were tested and it was really difficult to stay true to yourself?
So many. And thankfully, as time has gone by, there are less of them. But it's always a balance between how do we present ourselves, how do we remain professional, but also meet the needs of our clients. And there is a performative aspect to what we do, where it's just like when you're talking with someone, if you're really in sync with them, you might begin mirroring them. Well, if suddenly they're hitting you with hate speech, you don't want to mirror that. That may be a line where you kind of gracefully bow out. I mean, as a young agent, one particularly humiliating choice I made was to pose as my client's girlfriend for a fancy dinner that he had for his company. He asked me to please go as his date. Not his date, I was in another relationship. And so it was this sort of call girl move that, just felt wrong all the way from the top of my head to the bottom of my high heels. And I wish I hadn't done that, but I did it, and I learned that if it feels wrong, if in your gut it's feeling wrong, better to pay attention to that.
Did you at least get a sale out of it?
I did. I did. In fact,
The room full of agents wants to know,
it was
did
like
you still
a
make commission?
$700,000 condo, and this was 30 years ago, so it was a big deal.
Yeah,
It was worth it.
David, have you seen any downside, and if you wouldn't mind sharing, like putting your full authenticity on display? Have you seen a downside to it?
Again, maybe I just don't get it, or maybe I don't pay close enough attention, but I'm sure it's happened, right? From those 1 or 2 listings I haven't gotten. I'm kidding. But I think I release it early in the conversation with the clients when I'm there to visit their home or go through the CMA for the first time. And I literally say that I think selecting an agent is a very personal decision. I think it's like selecting a doctor. I think it's like selecting a yoga teacher, right? Like this teacher you like to go back to each time. Why? Because the way they make you feel, right? And the energy that you get from that person. So I release it early on with clients, and I say, this is a really personal relationship. We're going to talk about your family and your finances and everything. So if it's not me, the first thing you need to do is you need to pick a local agent that you really like and trust, and you need to go with your gut, and you need to hire that person. And if it's not me, I get it. But that's the first thing you need to pay attention to. So I release it early on with clients. I don't know if that's for my benefit or for theirs, but I say it 100% of times in my listing appointments.
Love it. So I would think we're running low on time, even though I could just sit here and talk to you guys forever and ever. I wanted to go through and kind of get a closing thought from all of you, and then we can ask if there are any questions out in the audience. So, today we were able to give you the confidence that stepping into your truest self is a very strong business strategy that will give you both the highest ROI and personal fulfillment if you will let it. What is some piece of advice or a closing thought that you can give the audience today?
I can go.
Yeah.
For me, I thought a lot about what it means to be a professional. And, I think about this also from the lens of improv, and I go and I leverage the play space to get people to connect in a way that they would never connect on their own. And for me, being a professional is guiding people through the process, making sure they feel supported, knowing what you're doing, and then letting go of the rest of the things that you feel like you have to do, and just having fun. Giving myself that permission and realizing that my clients don't really care how I dress, but rather that I know what I'm talking about when we do a walkthrough, and I actually know structures better than most agents in San Francisco. That's what they care about. And so giving myself permission to have fun has just made this job so much more enjoyable for me, for my clients. It's been better business, and it's just easier.
Here. And I'm sure they feel that working with
100%.
you. Cynthia.
There's this old expression about you may as well be yourself because everyone else is already taken. And I think that the good news about a real estate career is that there are so many ways that you can be successful and be yourself at the same time. I mean, we see people all the time who we don't even like. They may be an asshole, and yet they're successful.
Are you talking about me, Cynthia?
You have to watch his video. But I think that, I have a favorite Buddhist saying that I like to keep in mind, which is Suzuki Roshi, who was the founder of San Francisco Zen Center, said, "All of you are perfect exactly the way you are," which is, I take that to heart. That's a really great thing. And each of you can use a little bit of improvement. So we're perfect. We can use a little improvement. And I think that the way we can improve is by befriending ourselves living into our truth, staying in integrity, and being grateful and happy for our lives. That'll lead to success in life.
David.
Because of who I am, I have always believed in paying it forward, right? So my favorite mantra in my life has always been, the only people with whom you should try to get even with are those that have helped you. And that's been a huge release for me, because then when I meet these other people and I know that karma is going to take care of it and I don't have to, I just focus on the people that have helped me get where I am and that have been a supporter of mine, and I focus my energy there.
Today, thinking about everything as we've been prepping over the last few weeks, there's one quote that really stood out in my mind by one of the most influential authors, and it's Dr. Seuss. Today you are you, that is truer than true, and there is no one alive who is youer than you. I hope that you guys take this opportunity, and I can't wait to see how you all step into yourselves, be more unapologetically you in business and in life, and especially in real estate. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. We're happy to pass around the mic.
I think they want to, they're
They
just
would
going
like,
to, we're recording it, so they'd like you to use the mic.
Do you guys do any marketing or events or belong to any, social clubs or anything that you feel like is really you and you have gotten business and clients and friends and everything that has worked well for you?
So the picture on the cover of the Half Moon Bay Review with my husband and I, the next day the phone rang and it was a woman named Jeannie, and she said, I don't know any other gay men, but my grandson that's 12 years old just came out as trans, and I don't know what that means. Will you have coffee? And I was like, yes, of course I'll have coffee. That turned into a local organization called Coast Pride, which was the very first LGBTQ support community at the coast, and I'm on the board. So that was profound.
I will say that for me, the way that I have built my business is primarily on being involved in groups, supporting other groups, being a part of those. So I'm the founder of the Mompreneur Meetup, which helps business owner moms figure out how to navigate life while they're the primary child caregiver, try to build a community around that. So I try to fill needs. I'm also vice president of the San Diego chapter of the AREA, Asian Real Estate Association, who, it's really important to us to find sustainable homeownership opportunities for the Asian American and Pacific Islander sect. Woo! Got some AREA peeps inside, I think this is where you can connect to the people who share values that are deeply rooted in what yours are. I run the same vibe through all of my events. So when I'm running an event, it's a client appreciation event, but it'll be to fundraise for something important. Rady's Children's Hospital in San Diego. And I try to touch on things that are super important to me, and it draws people closer to me who share those same values, and they become friends, I become a resource, and it becomes a real relationship. In real estate, there's so much about real relationship that turns into dollars. So if you just root yourself in that giving and those relationships, it can turn into a very successful and long business.
yeah, I think that if you start where you are with your sphere, that could be the people who you go running with. It may be the moms you see in the pickup line. It could be your friends at your favorite restaurant, whatever it is. It's good to just let them know what you do for a living. You never know. It might come in handy for them.
I remember, Sarah, one time I went to a talk where people were talking about their strategies, and this one agent was talking about how she goes to Costco more than she needs to. Just to be visible with the community. Those agents exist. Hopefully they're not outside. I completely agree with Cynthia. I think it's best to just do what you do and connect with people in that space, make sure they know what you're doing. One practice that I picked up, which I actually picked up off of one of my lenders, which I absolutely love, is so I donate $250 from each transaction to a nonprofit of choice for my client. And I always encourage them to choose a nonprofit as close to their house as possible and use this opportunity as an excuse to learn about nonprofits in the places that they're going to. I think so much of what we do is about matchmaking people with place. And one way to address a lot of potential criticism or mismatch is like, get to know the community that you're going into. And I myself have learned about a lot of nonprofits and gotten involved with some of them through this process. So I've really loved that. I picked it up of someone else, and it's certainly available to all of you.
Love it. All right, do we have any more questions? One more. Oh, yeah, one more here.
Question that I have is that a lot of times being authentic sometimes lets you put out your true feelings and emotions with clients. Some clients tend to be difficult. They tend to be maybe very critical, and they nitpick every step of the process, whereas many other clients are just appreciative the whole time. Do you guys have any secrets? Because it's one thing to be true to yourself and not sell yourself short and have to cave and feel like you're eating everything inside, which can be toxic to yourself because you're around a toxic person. But do you have any suggestions or tips on how you handle that with the right positivity and not internalizing it in any way?
Well,
Great question.
That is a
Dan.
great question. Can I? I think it's important to have boundaries, and that would start with things like not working 80 hours a week. I've heard a lot of people on the different stages saying, I work 80 hours a week. I don't. I limit how much I work. And I think if someone's being abusive, you need to let them know that that's not okay and request that they not be that way with you. Or say, I can talk with you tomorrow morning after I've had my dinner and gone to sleep for the night, and then we can engage tomorrow. And I think it means having the courage to get to the truth as soon as you can and try to fire people before you're in the middle of a transaction, because it's hard to fire them in the middle of a transaction. That's when you may have to just grin and bear it, or have a colleague step in and take over. I've done that.
Woosah. Yeah, I think the less attached that you become to the money and the more attached that you become to the impact, the less you will work with people like that, and the more you'll work and attract clients that you want to work with and that you want to serve. So just let go of those dollars and say they can be on their way, because the stress is not worth it.
I think a lot of it has to do also with the framing, right? You can make it about yourself, or you can make it about them in a kind way. Like, I can see that you, instead of like, I don't have time for this, I can see how you deserve someone with a higher availability than I'm able to offer, right? There's certainly a way that you can frame it in a positive way. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way framing it in the wrong way, and I've learned that almost every boundary that I need to create can be framed in a way where it is in the best interest of the client, because the truth is what's best for you is what's in the best interest for the client, because you can serve them better. So I would encourage you to think about the framing.
That is a great thing to learn in business. All right, last question.
Hi, this is Lynlyn Otani, and first of all, I want to share my gratitude for all of you to be giving this a part of yourself, because I came into real estate just wanting to, help people through one of the most important transactions of their lives, and just to make a difference in the world with what I believe. And there are some times where I do almost feel guilty for having a life outside of real estate, and I want to find out like how you frame it, because they're trusting you with their life savings almost, and to not make it like I don't know, well, now I have to take some time off because I have to go to my daughter's, college graduation, or, now my grandchild was born, 10 days ago. We have to go take some time off to go see her. And so I almost feel guilty saying that, especially if maybe the clients are going through some hard times themselves. But I want them to know that I actually have a life outside of what I do, and they're not the center, but I want them to feel special. So it's always like this, conflict I have within myself, to, establish like the boundaries that I need to establish.
I think we need a whole session on boundaries. I'm going to recommend that next year. Do you guys want to pick up on that one?
Do you have some?
I would only say that because of the fortunate upbringing I have, we were not taught that guilt was a thing. I literally didn't understand the meaning of guilt. So I don't have those sort of feelings.
We need to have had David's parents.
Bob
as
and
our
Judy on
parents.
the panel.
I would say that, not necessarily being there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is what makes people feel like you are there for them 24/7. I think it's, what you are saying, how you are serving them, and how they just need to feel seen and heard. If they feel seen, heard, and understood, they won't necessarily expect that you're going to be there at all hours of the day or night.
I also think that always keep in mind that whoever you're working with is really lucky to have found you. And you're working for them probably for free, for starters. Does an attorney or a doctor make themselves available 24/7? I don't think so. Not even your therapist. Nobody will love them the way you do. So it is fine to not feel guilty because you're giving so much. They're so lucky to have you. And just try to remember that you're serving, but they're benefiting so much from your noble practice. It is a noble practice.
I have two concrete things that I do with my clients also that I think you may benefit from. One is we know the process really well, and when something's urgent and when something is not, the clients don't. And so I have monthly workshops where I educate my clients so that they really understand the process. So when you're explaining to them, hey, this is not a rush, they know and they feel it and they're not anxious about it, right? So education is really, really key up front for me and my buyer relationship. The second thing is I don't think you necessarily have to list all of the times that you're unavailable, but make it clear when you're available. Hey, I'm available 10 to 12, 4 to 6. Let me know when you'd like to connect. You don't have to provide an explanation for what you're doing all the other time. And there's some clients that care and there's some clients that don't. We were talking about this. The higher price point clients don't want to know that you ride horses or do improv, right? They're like, sell me my house, leave me alone.
They don't give a shit.
So I would just focus on your availability and not necessarily your unavailability. Yeah.
Wonderful session. I think you guys are incredible. Thank you, David, Cynthia, and Danny. And thank you, you guys. Hopefully we inspire you to be you. Go out and make the most of the rest of this beautiful day. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.